Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for this presentation. The purpose of this presentation is again to engage with interested young adult Smileys to discuss on topics that are normally not discussed in Jamaat Khanas or ITRAB held events such as young adult conversations. I urge all Smiley students to take the life's challenge, to step outside your comfort zone, to think outside the box, to expand your mindset, to explore different point of views, to learn from each other as well as from other communities, with the purpose of finding out who you are, to see al-haq, to be enlightened. In this presentation, we'll focus on grouping Smiley believers into four potential categories. This is only for discussion purposes, so let's begin. The four types of potential Smileys that we'll discuss are: one, the truth seekers, the helpless believers, the moderate Smileys, and the diehard fans, the diehard believers. So we'll look at the characteristics of each of these four potential Smiley grouping so that we have a better understanding of what these believers are, where they're coming from, as well as what is their mentality. So the truth seeker, the real learner within the Smiley community, they're usually a small minority. Now these individuals, they're normally born into the Smiley religion as opposed to intentionally joining after reaching the age of intelligence. Now you'll see that that's a common theme among all types of characters that we're going to talk about in this presentation. Number two, this Smiley usually has a drive to know the truth for oneself. They're either a fearless inquirer, explorer, questioner. They don't give up easily. So if they might have a question, they might go to night school, they might go to Jamaat Khana, they might talk to an advice, and they might get a response, but unless and until it really resonates with them, like they really feel the essence of it, that it makes sense, it's rational, it's logical, or it's reasonable, they won't stop. They'll go to another advice, they'll seek support from outside community, they'll talk to different people, they'll read different things, they'll try to get a better understanding from everybody's perspective to come to their own conclusion. They genuinely care, they genuinely care about the humanity as a whole. They want to be good people, they want to care about other people, they want the best for everybody, and they want to be a solution instead of the problem. Number five is they live with a mindset that it's one humanity over one Jamaat mindset. So you'll see within each community, you have individuals that place their community above other communities. And it's a natural act, it's reasonable from their point of view. But these individuals, they'll care about their community, but above their community, they'll place humanity over it. And at the end of the day, they will choose logic, rationale over their own belief, even their own leader, their own faith. Number seven is that they're open to the possibility that their own leader, in this case, Hajj Imam or Imam of the time, can be wrong, and that Smileyism may not be truth itself and may not be necessary in life. So they're not going to make the final verdict that, hey, you have to be Smiley or you don't need to be Smiley, but they're open to different possibilities, they're open to learning. Number eight, they genuinely want to be true. They generally want to be true to themselves. So you see them in everyday life. It comes natural to them that they won't lie, cheat, and anything that they do it with good intention. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong, but you know they're coming from a good place. Number nine, they genuinely are seeking enlightenment. They genuinely are seeking anal haq. Smileyism is not just a religion for them. They feel that through Smileyism, through Imam's guidance, they can achieve anal haq. Number 10, they're willing to engage in free-minded intellectual conversations. Now this is very important because of that mindset, they're willing to listen to presentations like this. They're willing to listen to presentations from other communities, from other philosophers, from other intellectuals, because at the end of the day, they don't really care who's saying it. They're more concerned about what is being said and if what is being said, is it true or not? Because they're after the truth. They're not after an ideology. They want to know the truth for themselves. The second category that we have is the helpless Smileys. Now, they're usually a minority within the community. Some of the potential characteristics of these Smileys are, again, they're born into Smileyism as opposed to joining after reaching the age of enlightenment, or sorry, the age of intelligence. Number 2, they're a product of childhood indoctrination. Number 3, they're a child who is not allowed to seriously ask difficult questions in the house, Jamaat Khana, or night school. So they're there because their parents might have put them into the Smiley night school, or they're born into that Smiley family, and they can't really get out. And they don't even know if they want to get out. But they're really in a position where they can't find the truth or answers to basic questions or even deeper questions that they may have because the people around them are not intelligent themselves. They're just doing it because their parents told them to do it, or they're doing it because they're saying, oh, one day you'll find out. One day you'll find out. So they're in that mindset. Number 4, they're not confident in their own abilities. So they don't think that if they were to question too much, or if something happens down the road, that they can be independent. So they're dependent on the community for support. They're dependent on the imam for psychological feelings, emotions, a sense of safety. They're risk averse, so they'll do anything and everything to be on the safe side. They might be, number 5, they might be married to a devoted Smiley spouse whom this person loves or cares about a lot. So they might just stay in the Smiley religion for their spouse. They're unable to leave marriage or family for various reasons, including financial, emotional, social. And as we all know, the need to belong to the community or to humanity as a whole. And as humans, we're social beings. It's nice to have a place to belong. Now, each community has their own sense of belonging, but the ideal situation is where you belong to humanity itself. But we're not there yet as a human race. So in our time, in our lifetime, to be able to belong to a community plays a very big role. So the sense of belonging, they stay there because they don't want to leave that feeling. Number 7, they have the drive to learn, but they don't have the resources enough to really get help, to get higher education, to talk to intelligent people who have gone through the journey, who have gone through the questioning, and to really engage with them and learn from them. Number 8, again, they're unable to handle the internal external consequences that may result from excommunication. So let's say that they really want to question, they really want to find out, but sometimes what that does is you end up asking very, very difficult questions. And in any community, there are certain rules, there are certain unsaid rules that you don't cross, or there's lines that you don't cross. And if you do that, you upset the authority in charge. And in any community, in any authoritarian community, authority does not like to be questioned. And when I say they don't like to be questioned, I don't mean that they won't take any questions. Yes, they'll take questions. They'll take questions that puts them in a good light, but they'll avoid questions that really challenges their authority. And if you question too much, as we discussed in the last presentation, there is a chance, as noted within the Ismaili Constitution, that you can be excommunicated from the community. Now, excommunication can lead to great psychological effects, and a lot of times people are not able to handle that stress in their life, or being away from the community, not being able to communicate with their family, friends, and so on. Number 9, these are usually illiterate, uneducated, poor individuals that have no access to outside help to really understand the bigger picture. Meaning, these individuals, in our case, they might be people who don't have access to the English language, meaning they're not fluent in English, so they can't read and write and interpret the leading intellectuals who are writing in the language of English. So because they don't have access to that language, they can't access a lot of knowledge. So in that sense, they're helpless. Number 10, they don't have the financial or mental intelligence to survive independently. So again, if they're excommunicated from the community, they don't know how to independently go on living, to be happy with themselves. They feel like they need the community to belong, to feel empowered. So in that sense, they're helpless. Number 3, a different type of category is the moderates. Now this is the mass majority of the Ismailis, or in any community that you go into that has an ideology that they follow, a belief system, there are going to be these moderates. Now, what are some of the potential characteristics of these moderate Ismaili believers? Same that goes for the helpless as well as the truth seeker learner Ismailis. Number 1 is that they're born into Ismailism as opposed to intentionally joining after reaching the age of intelligence. Number 2, they normally have a sense of pride, or they feel proud of being an Ismaili. Number 3, they feel blessed to belong to the Ismaili community. Now they do contribute. They contribute a lot to the community, but on the bigger scale, they really contribute very little, but they make sure to take the full advantage that comes with the social benefits of being in the Ismaili community. Number 4, these individuals have, likely than not, have never read the entire constitution. They don't understand the Ismaili constitutions. Number 5, they have little to no knowledge of their ancestors or how their ancestors were converted into Ismailism. So they know they're born into Ismailism, but they don't know why their parents or grandparents converted. Number 6, they don't know the meaning or the essence of the Ismaili dua. They're not likely to know why they do certain things within Jamaat Khana, why they raise their hands, or why they drink niyaz, or why they do chanta, why they do toba tobo. They just do it because they're being told to do. Number 7, they're indirectly a major contributor that sustains the Ismaili beliefs in practice. Now this is the key here, and we'll go through some slides where we talk about how the moderates really carry any belief system, any ideology, and how they are the one who are the driving force behind the sustenance of an ideology. Number 8, they haphazardly obey the commands of the Imam. So yes, they're Ismailis, they listen to the Imam, and they try to do what the Imam says, but at the end of the day, they're not going to make a full 100% effort to do what the Imam is saying. And these are the people that it's very difficult to have a conversation with because they will flip-flop. And it's okay because you can understand from their perspective, if they are not even willing to listen to their own imam 100% of the time, how can you expect them to listen or be respectful of other people? Number 9, they are really unlikely to reach an al-haq or enlightenment. That's just the way it has been in the past, where you'll see the majority of any population within an ideology, they are the least likely to actually understand the ideology and actually get to the end goal of that ideology. Number 10, they're usually the very selfish of the bunch, and they're very ignorant of their own self, let alone of other people. So they'll know a little bit about their own ideology, but they'll know very little about any ideology of the other person or of other communities. So they're very self-centered in a way. Now this is the last set of group that we'll talk about here, and these are the die-hard believers. And usually within any community of belief systems and ideology, this is a very small minority of the population. Again, they're born into Ismailism as opposed to intentionally joining. Number 2, these individuals will always try to attend morning and evening Jamaat Khana. They will always try to recite the Ismaili dua on time, 3 times a day, as commanded by their imam. Number 4, they'll always try to stay current in the zone. Number 5, they're proactively seeking to enroll into any available majlis that they might be able to take the benefit of. Again, they want to really understand their religion, their belief system, because they really believe it from all their heart. They really think that this is it. These individuals are likely to have taken the bowl when the opportunity presented itself, especially recently when Hazrat Imam had the Jubilee and in which he was willing to give the bowl. These individuals, again, they feel Ismailism is truth in itself. It's not just another belief system that they're part of. It's not like a moral team that, hey, everybody's in it to do good and these things. They have certain truths that they believe to be truth, and for that they're willing to risk their lives in a sense. Number 8, they'll accept the imam's point of view as facts, as truth, without doing any meaningful due diligence on their own part. So everything the imam says, it's a word of a higher power, right? So they won't question it. They'll just take it as it is. Number 9, and this is where number 9 and 10 is where it gets really serious in a sense, where these individuals are willing to forsake their family for their imam. Number 10, again, they're such die-hard believers that they're willing to kill or be killed for their faith. So they're gonna take somebody's life for Ismailism, or they might even give their own lives for Ismailism. So basically, if the imam commands them to go to war for Ismailism, they will go to war. If the imam says that, hey, that this war is justified, and in order to maintain our faith, you will have to fight for it, physically fight for it, they'll do it. And these are usually the Fidai members of the community. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the moderates, because they are the mass majority, and they're very, very powerful and influential within any community. This is a little snapshot from Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, and it's amazing because he's referencing the white moderates of the time, and he's pleading to them how the white moderates are in fact aiding the extreme whites and helping them continue or sustained slavery in a sense. So here Martin Luther King says, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. Again, moderate being they're not extreme in any sense. They're just people who do what they're being told within the community, and they do it without questioning or without really thinking about their actions and the consequences that it has. He continues, I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. Now this really hits home because you as a Ismaili child might be questioning at home to really understand, and you might hear your parents or even Ismaili leaders saying, hey, because you're questioning, you're creating tension, you're creating confusion within the community. Your parents and Ismaili leaders, they'll go, you need to stop, you need to maintain order in a sense. And they prefer negative peace, right? So they don't want you to be fighting, they don't want you to argue, but they don't understand that your plea where you're not trying to argue. You just want to find out, you want to learn. That's why you're asking the questions. But because you're asking difficult and hard questions, they lead to confrontation because you really want to get down to it. What is it? What do we really believe? Is it XYZ or is it ABC? What is it? So in that sense, they'll negate you from asking those difficult questions. They'll ask you to be quiet, stay low, be silent. Now, continuing on, Martin Luther King says, shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Now, really take some time to understand what he's saying. In general, the principle that he's replying. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Take some time to really see what he's saying. And yes, he's addressing the white moderate, but see the underlying principle of what a moderate does in any community, in any belief system, in any ideology, whether it's religious ideology, whether it's national ideology, whether it's team ideology. See what he's saying about the moderates. And ask yourself, are you one of these moderates? Now, here's a snapshot from Sultan Muhammad Shah's memoirs. Now, this is the late Imam, the Imam of current Hazir Imam, the grandfather of the current Imam, Hazir Imam, Aga Khan IV. Here he talks about how Islam itself has survived, and it's important to take note of what he's really saying, because he explains how Islam has survived and how that also implies into his own religion, the Ismailism, and how it's able to survive. So let's read it and see if it makes sense or if we can connect the dots here. He says, I go further. If after our Holy Prophet, the succession had gone to the Ansar of Medina, a kindly, steadfast clan / tribe or nation at that time of Yomi, these individuals are people who are content to live on and work by the land. So he's saying these are very simple people. They're honest, hardworking people who live off the land, not too extravagant. They're helpful, kind people. Instead of to the Prophet's own tribe, the Quraysh of Mecca, the reckless folks with a lust for travel and adventure. then Islam would have taken a totally different turn. Now this is Sultan Muhammad Shah saying it, okay? Under the leadership of the Ansar of Medina, it would have been today, if it indeed still survived. So he's saying there's a possibility that if Islam was left under the leadership of these kind and steadfast clan, that there would have been a possibility that Islam itself might have not survived. And then he goes on to say, if it indeed survived, it would have been one of the many little known Eastern sects. So what he's confirming here, that there are many little Eastern sects that are there today that if conditions or circumstances were different, they could have been the Islam of today, right? But they're not. It needed the imagination, the international experience of the citizens of Mecca to have made Islam a world religion. So that's his point of view on why he believes Islam became a world religion, how Islam was able to become a world religion and not be just one of the little known Eastern sects. Now here you can see that Hazrat Imam, the current Imam, has learned a lot from this mindset. Here you can see that the Imam directly and indirectly seeks to avoid the current Ismaili moderates to become the likes of Ansars of Medina, who would be happy living with the mindset of kind, steadfast clan, the community. Because he knows that if that happens, Ismailism would not likely to survive. And if it does survive, it would remain a little Eastern sect. The Imam's ego wants to be known. He wants to be praised and recognized. He has his imagination and lust for travel and adventure that he wants to feed. The Imam himself is a slave of his own ego, as it seems. You as the moderate Ismaili directly and indirectly helps the Imam accomplish the desires and the lusts of his own ego, while he, the Imam, helps you directly and indirectly to fulfill your ego, your lust for travel and adventure. Now, a moderate Ismaili normally doesn't remain a Ismaili for long if his ego is not served by the Imam or Ismailism itself. Now you can see that within Ismailism. Now moderates, again, they're the majority of the Ismailis. They're Ismaili because they have something to gain for themselves. If they were not gaining those things, if they weren't benefiting from being in the Ismaili community, they would simply leave. They're not really Ismailis as truth seekers. They're Ismailis for the sake of belonging to a community itself. Now, if within these presentations or other presentations that we have done, if you go from being Ismaili to Sunni or Nashris or Catholic or into the Hindu faith or Buddhism or any other belief system, you're essentially missing the point. The point is to go from Ismailism to enlightenment to analog. Now, the point that's being made here is that it is not possible to remain an Ismaili and be enlightened at the same time. You have to choose one. You can either choose to remain an Ismaili for the rest of your life or give yourself the possibility of seeing enlightenment, analog, by stepping outside the limitations of all beliefs, ideologies, traditions, school of thoughts. Stepping outside means living a life of learning, of inquiring, of questioning, of exploring, in the hopes that that aha moment, the true enlightenment, where you know who you are, that clarity that you have, may occur by being free of all ideology, having no allegiance to any ideology at all, because all ideologies are ideas. They're based on ideas. They're not truth. Truth is not an idea. Truth is truth. Can you properly give yourself a fair chance of enlightenment? Now here's my hope, why I'm doing all of this. I am hopeful that in the coming generations, educated Ismailis may see for themselves that the psychological tactics of the Ismaili Imamate used to convert the poor, illiterate, uneducated Ismailis into Ismailism. So they were not Ismailis before, now they're Ismailis. That they may see for themselves the grave harmful effects of prayers such as Ya Ali tu hamare Ya Ali tu hamara iman आखिरी दम तक सलामत रख, meaning, O Noor, please keep my faith alive until my last breath. Another meaning is, O Imam, keep me as a lifelong follower. Now these are Ismailis who are taught by the Imam to say these prayers, and after which they say Ameen. This is something that they're proud of. They want to. They feel that they should remain a lifelong follower. That's their goal. That's what they've been indoctrinated to believe, that it's a good thing to want this. Now, an individual who really understands the irony of this prayer as it relates to truth, enlightenment, al-haq, he would most likely immediately stop reciting it. For he sees for himself that by wishing to remain a lifelong follower, the very possibility of true freedom, al-haq, enlightenment, is not possible. For an al-haq or enlightened being, by definition, is neither a follower nor a leader, but truth himself or itself. That is to be outside the scope of duality, outside of being a follower or leader or a slave or master or a murid or murshid, which all signify duality. This is my hope, that Ismailis and other followers of other faiths, beliefs may come to see this for themselves. That the moment you follow someone, you cease to follow truth. And I mean anyone. So do not seek to follow anyone when it comes to the matter of truth. I cannot stress this enough. The essential point is that in the matter of truth, you have to go at it alone. Thank you for listening to this presentation.